application, we may think it in terms of responsiveness, user experience, or even perhaps in mobile application to provide some specific functionality to our customers. And all this have to be supported by the best security practices we can achieve. Migrating to the latest versions allow us to use the new features. This gives us a new set of opportunities for our application businesses and even development team management. Regarding user experience, user interfaces, and multi-experience, here in GeneXus, we have a wide set of tools to use. In GeneXus now, we have the concept of design system that set the principles, patterns, and practices oriented at building a digital product that is coherent, uniform, and robust in terms of design and usability. The implementation of patterns and design practices facilitates the modernization of our application in terms of time to market. To do so, we can use one of the bundle designs that GeneXus provided to us, or use an accelerator. In our case, we use K2B tools. Or in other way, we can even define our own design system if needed. In the dimension of the responsive web application, we can develop now provide as an optimal experience across multiple types of devices and screen resolutions to access our application by our customers in an easier way. Another feature that we can use now is PWA, and this will provide us a responsive application to a new level of experience for our user. In the progressive web application, with all the progressive web application bring us benefits of reliability on offline scenarios, faster application experience, and more natural engaging of our application on smart devices. And of course, we can also use native application using smart devices generator and generate application for multiple types of devices, such as cell phones, Apple TV, or wearables like Apple Watch. All of these functionalities allow us to offer new interaction ways with our application, making a consistent and coherent user experience in different interactions points the user will have with our system now. Another strong argument for modernization is to increase our interoperability capacities and take advantage of the new business model emerging based on the app economy. In this matter, modernizing our application brings us the opportunity of expose our digital assets and take advantage of them in terms of reuse, share, and even monetization of these assets. The newest version of GeneXus allows us in a very easy way to develop, integrate, and manage our API services, facilitating standard compliance for our services and also publication of our services in serverless architectures. On the other hand, we can consume very easily a wide set of services that are integrated in GeneXus, that they are ready to use, like payments, IA integration with chatbots, or security integration. In other field, in the field of DevOps and development field, for KBS older than 9 or previous ones, or the ones that are not using GeneXus server, the improvements that represent the possibility of the use of GeneXus server for coordination, development teams in terms of consolidation, merging of versions, and the use of different branches of development increase the productivity and efficiency of the development process. In the DevOps fields, the industry is moving towards continuous integration and continuous deployment. And this is changing the way we manage our development teams and deploy our application. In this matter, are also really big improvements, such as GeneXus server integration with Jenkins for manage and define our pipelines, automatize our consolidation, building, testing, and deploy process, And also we can use new types of deployment, such as deployment in serverless architectures, as mentioned before, deploying platform as a service or containers. In the other dimension that I want to bring to you today is the actualization of our application in terms of security. Nowadays, we cannot fight today's vulnerabilities with 15, 10, or even 5 years old tools. Those versions were very good on their time, but 15 years ago, for example, nobody was talking about OWASP Top 10, and even more, the list of actualized, the list of the OWASP Top 10 is actualized on a regular basis, so we can be updated very quickly. The security risks are always evolving, so we need to be in other versions. Being other versions increases our exposure to vulnerabilities. Security improvements that came with the GeneXus Access Manager for previous versions that didn't have it, and the set of improvements made on the GeneXus platform during the evolutions and newest upgrades set a high starting point in terms of security dimension for our applications. Okay.
Well, here Diego told us the good things, the new features we can use in the modernization that sets our goals and define the product, the final application we want to go. We think, but now we think it's necessary to plan the migration or the modernization or re-engineering. We understand these three concepts by saying migration, we only to change the GeneXus version, we don't change functionality and not change environment. In modernization, we change the GeneXus version, perhaps change the environment, but keeping the functionality, the essence in the application. And in engineering, we're thinking we need to change a lot of our functionality, and we think this kind of project is like a new product we are constructing. So in this presentation, we are going to focus on migration and modernization. We set the goals, and now we have to make a diagnosis of our starting point. If we are, I'm going to tell this process in making an example and a project I did a year ago, that we have a knowledge base in I know with two environments. This knowledge base came from previous version of GeneXus, like 7.5, and when we start the project, we are in I know already. So we have two environments, green screen with RPG generator, and have a web environment with Java. The strategy, so we have different objectives for each environment, so we define different strategies for each environment. For example, we have defined RPG environment is basically batch projects, batch procedures. So we define the strategy to migrate with the same functionality, the same environment. So we focus in the procedures function equally in both versions. We need to know what the problem in this project is. For the platform in web, we define a modernization. We want the objective of the functionality is the same, but we want to apply the better practices in security, usability, and with a new design. We need to know now the diagnosis of the knowledge base. The first information is the version we are. So if we are previous, it's not my case in the example, but if you are in version previous 9.0, you need to stop, make a little stop in 9.0, and after go to GeneXus 16. And if you are in 9.0, you can go directly to 16. Why recommend this scale in the process? Because 9.0 version has a lot of control, so over the code we did in previous versions. The clear example is the use of subtypes in versions. Previous 9.0 we can define subtypes without group, but in 9.0 that give us an error and give us the tool to correct that information. For this reason, I recommend make this intermediate conversion to review the subtype definition, correct there, and after make a conversion from 9.0 to 16 version. You know, as a GeneXus programmer, that subtypes could affect really to the navigation and the information of information, so it's a good practice to correct them and then go on. Now, I recommend also you are in 9.0 or previous, or you do this bit scale. I recommend to copy the root of the knowledge base and open with the 16 versions in order to preserve all the preference and properties then and your KB, and some values leave us compatible, so you can define how to adjust it if you want or leave them compatible. This is a clear example. This property, empty as null, is the clear example of this. Another thing is important is to identify the objects that you no longer use is in the KB because you don't use and is old, is obsolete, that functionality, because you don't have to spend time in those objects and it's easy to do now. Some tools in the GeneXus market could help you, like KB Doctor. They show you how objects are not reached or perhaps it's not users, and then you can identify them. Now we have the knowledge base in 16 versions, and we want to analyze the different problem we have in order to find the errors or possible errors in the objects we want to keep. If we think with the first approach with RPG environment, we want to live without changes. So we focus in finding conversion error, navigation difference, or possible compilation errors. In this case, we have to compare, we could compare the navigation in order to detect problems before the testing. To do this, we can generate in both KBs, apply navigation comparison tools that allow us to easily compare both navigations with a text compare. And we can analyze, focus in solving problem or the problem before we testing. In newest version of GeneXus, we could infer difference or make optimizations different than the previous version. In the example I have here is the same object in 9.0 and 16, and is take a different index. Perhaps it's not important. Perhaps it's easy. It's better because move the filters to constraints and then optimize my navigation. But if the code inside the navigation is important, the index, like, I don't know, you are summarizing something, and we need to change the code to define exactly the index as the previous version. And these tools allow us the possibility to do this in massive way. If we have to go object by object in GeneXus, seeing both navigation in both KB is hard work. But if with this tool, transform the navigation to text files, and you can compare in a massive way. So you can use a text compare, like in the image below, and they say which programs have difference and which the point of the difference. So you can count the amount of problem you could have. This information is very important in order to estimate the work, so we can focus only in the process that have difference, and the process that don't have difference with left aside. Other things that don't happen in my example project is we have to change the generator. Perhaps we can to change Java for .NET or something like that, and then we can detect if we have native code or not. We have two ways to see that is change the property allow non-standard function, the option GeneXus, to only standard function and generate, so all these programs could find error and then you detect clearly, or make a find in the text navigation that you have to use to compare and find that warning from native language. What we plan to do with that? Well, we can change to GeneXus function, because in previous versions, sometimes we have to use native Go because we don't have that function in GeneXus, but probably now we have this function and we can substitute with GeneXus. In the other way, we find the correlative function in the new generator. As we see for migration or our analyze the objects we are going to maintain, we generate, verify, and use tools to count or estimate the problem we have, or which object we have problem. So this input or this analysis make us allow us to estimate for each project. So we have the amount of object we are going to take. In this case, the RPT generation don't change a lot, and a few programs we have. So we determine that we have to work in a few objects. We catalog them for different errors and estimate the error by effort in each object. So we know over which procedures or objects GeneXus we have to work. In the second part of the project is a little our approach is different, because we want to modernize the application, and we don't going to use the objects in the same way. So we classify the objects in a different way. We separate the objects we want to keep, or we are going to use as is. So it's more the user without the object without interface, and all the project. And for estimation and diagnosis, we do the same on the RPG environment. So we going to find errors of conversion, find difference of navigation. So we determine which object we want to keep, and which of them have problems, and we have to work them. The other way, we focus now in the biggest work we have to do, and then we have to focus in object with interface. So we are going to make an inventory of the functionality we're going to change, and we organize by module. The first things we have to do is select our design system, that determine the theme, the color, the design, the interaction. That's define the pattern we are going to apply in the development. This selection is obviously aligned to the user experience we define in our goals. For example, in our project, we define to use a predefined design system in K2B tools and apply them to our project. So we divide the interface objects in two groups also: the work with behavior and the rest of the screen. For the work with behaviors, we define not to do each one again. We decide to apply entity managers, K2B tool entity managers, over the transaction, and the pattern generate for us all the objects, and in special cases we add actions in the instance if it is needed. So the remaining screen are the difficult screen, are the special screen in our, perhaps the most important screen in our application. So we classify again according to complexity. So we define, in this case, web panel designer para apply to all of them. All this work divide or catalog all the objects in our system in different boxes and define the work to reach the goals in each case. So if we think in the estimation, this is an example that we focus on objects we are going to keep. Again, the difference of navigation, index, constraints, orders. For objects we want to change and modernize, well, we define the instance, we convert. In this case, we are, and I know we use work with GeneXus pattern, so we transform the instance of the objects to the new version of K2B, and divide the complexity, the web panels in complexity and for each type of work, and we assign hours to must do in the project. It's not, I mean, in my example, I don't have green or environment, or no, I don't want to move green environment to web. But if the case in your project, in the estimation, you need to change and take the analysis perhaps is the same. You can diagnose the object we want to keep, the object you want to change, focus in object with interface, but to take care that the object, the the trigger or the events or the rules or content value or transaction integrity is different that web. So the effort of move the events or rules from win or gain environment to web is more than web to web. All that analysis give us the estimation, the effort to move to our application or our starting point to the goals we set in the beginning. Is that set the basic measures for a project. So we have to with this we have to make, or is the big input to make the plan. Other thing to take account in care is if you have in your knowledge base other tools of the suite like GXFlow, GAM, K2B tools, work with GeneXus with other pattern tools, you have to consider the conversion of this product of the suite. For example, if you are on previous version of 9.0, for GXFlow is the same. You need to make a intermediate step in GeneXus 9.0 and then go through 16 version of GeneXus, because the product knows is in this version and create and convert all the diagrams to the new version. If you are going to plan the project, I suggest you that the GeneXus convert the diagrams automatically, but sometimes in old versions we use artifacts that is not the best way of do the diagram, so it should estimate sometimes to optimize or the diagrams in the new version. In the case of pattern, you can convert to a version or convert to K2B tools as we asked. You have to decide as we say the design system you need, and in addition you have to plan time to review and verify the properties. GAM appeared in Evolution's versions and in Convert naturally as his own database, so it's mainly easy for us. All that things we have to plan, we have to define time and resources to define the project. So we need to define how to going to move from a certain point to the goals we set to the project. So we define a project plan, and we need to define the project team that execute that project and how actives we have and tools or documents or whatever we need to go to have a successful project. If we think in the project team, the ideally scenario is to have a technical resource who knows all the KB or the knowledge base we start from. This is the ideal scenario, but we know that all KB, perhaps we don't have that person. But we need if we don't have this person, we need a functional resource that help us to understand the application. In other words, these people is a key person in the project. We can do all this correction, we check, we review functionality, we do all automatic things, but if we don't know the functionality itself, we are correcting syntactically but not semantically the functionality. So we need that person in the project. The rest of the team, perhaps they don't know the KB, but one person or technical node we need. For the plan and execution, we have the hours. We estimate the hours for each task, and we have to define the approach of the project. A clear approach here, in my example, I have two generators, two environments, so I make 2 lines of development. But if you have all one environment, you can parallel the task between object that you want to keep and option that you want to change. That is a good way to optimize the team. Other things is useful for me is organize the development of the new features by module, because we are thinking in a modernization. Perhaps we have changes over the database, but it's not a big changes. We keep the functionality, so we can define an order in the modules, and both application can share the same database. So perhaps we are working on the first module. What we are working on is the query information, don't change functionality, and the previous application is continue working. And then I going to publish or go live part of the new application, and we combine that kind of thing. So we can have intermediate deliveries for the client, or if we don't want to go live with modules, it is important to have these intermediate modules to deliver, but to test and user validation. In order the test phase or the test plan, we can divide in 2 lines too. The process, we keep the functionality, and mainly in batch, we can make parallels and define executing one version and executing the other version and compare. This is really useful in huge or difficult calculation processes, like, I don't know, in my case, RPG control the payroll. So we need to have the same result in both systems. For the interactive development, I think it's the same of the project of construction, because we are changing that interaction with the user. We have to make the test cases in order to meet the goals we set at the beginning, the security test cases to verify we set in the goals for security, for usability. I think is the same in a common project, but we have an advantage in that case, because for some functionality we could execute, I don't know, make a summary or some results. We can execute in the old application and execute in the new application, and we have a good idea if the correctness of the information that give to us or not. Well, the other thing you take care is the documents or the tools you could use in this kind of project. When you are reviewing the information in procedures, that difference of navigation, subtype problems, syntax problems you can find in like 7.5 version. It's really useful document it, because imagine you have you find an error with a subtype. This subtype is used many times in the project, and the people who develop that module program the same and the same style, and then if they make we have to correct that code, probably this error or this change we need is repeated. So we always document all these corrections, the change we did in subtype, in navigation, because it's an input for other member of the team. And also, if we are normally external organization, is a good documentation to give to our client to say, well, I correct this, I spend my time in this and this. That project active is really important. The other important document or active of the project is the tools we use. Perhaps I say Cabe Doctor to find not user objects. I mentioned navigation comparison tools to review and detect difference of navigation. Perhaps there are another one in GeneXus Wiki that's shortest name that we can use, because in previous version of GeneXus we have 10, 8, 7 in the preference, and now in the new environment we want to move to a large name, but we don't want to reorder all our knowledge database only to extend the names. So we can use that. I'm going to give all these links and reference in technical for you. Okay, I think I said a lot of problems you could find in and you have to detect in your application, and the way we find to prevent these errors before we are testing, because in our experience, when we don't detect these problems before we are testing, we move from testing to development and correct, and it's sometimes a little error of subtypes or navigation in a large procedure for calculation is difficult to see in testing, or perhaps the information or the data entry we need is costly to generate, and if we prevent all this error, it's better for us in time of testing. Well, in summary, we want to share our experience, our pains, our good things done. When we face this kind of pressure of migration or modernization, that we think is just a little bit different from construction from scratch. And we think it's really important to define goals, strategy in all the modernization or migration, and strategy on the modules and the deliverables we want to give to the users. And with all the effort of estimation, perhaps you think it's wasting time, but it's important to set the plan. If you need to sell in some way the project to your client, to your organization, and no matter if an internal project or you are a provider. And then is this estimation give you the amount of power you need to make a controlled project in all aspects. Well, I think I talk a lot, and then, well, if you have questions, we are here. I reading a question from the chat. Is there a best practice document useful to convert that's what to 9026? Yes, I give it, and at the end of the presentation, in the next slide, I left a document in the GeneXus wiki that give you a steps or better the what things is changing from 9 to evolution and that kind of things, and that what consideration you need to take in that journey. Also, they are documented there, deprecated function that you could leave in your code, but is recommended to keep, like hidden property, allow nulls, transform a null value in the transaction. That kind of things are documented there. Also, the navigation tool is really documented in GeneXus wiki.
Hi, Claudia and Diego. I'm back. Let's see if we have any more questions. Let's give it a couple of seconds. So everyone in the audience, this is your time to write in the chat. So if you have any questions for Claudia and Diego, please do so. Okay, I think there are no more questions. So Claudia and Diego, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar. Just as a final reminder, the recording of this webinar will be available on the GeneXus webinar site and also on our YouTube channel. Remember to check our new GeneXus webinar site for previous and for upcoming webinars. All content, as you know, is free and 100% online. Remember, next Tuesday, the 23rd of June, we have another webinar in English. It's going to be by Gonzalo Echagüe and Mauro Cantiani on how to import your sketch projects into GeneXus. So don't miss it. And I hope to see you again next time. Please be safe.